Most of the people there are willing to give up their seats to try to fix something in this country to secure the future. And so the political price, we're willing to pay whatever it is to get something done that will assure the future of this country.
That was Republican Senator Tom Coburn reflecting on the dinner he shared with President Obama and nearly a dozen other lawmakers last night. The president arranged the dinner in hopes of starting a bipartisan conversation about a range of pressing issues. But is it too little, too late? Here with me now is another one of the president's dinner mates from last night, Republican Senator from Indiana and the ranking Republican on the Joint Economic Committee, Senator Dan Coats. Senator, I want to ask you about what Tom Coburn said. I don't mean to be a cynic, but do you believe every senator believes what he believes, that they'd be willing to lose their seat for a big deal? Not every senator seems to act that way these days.
Well, you know, it's always a tension between your political interest and the interest of the country. And I hope that there are a lot of senators and a lot of congressmen and the President of the United States are willing to put the interest of the country ahead of their own political interests. We do a lot of yelling at each other. Last night was constructive because it was serious. It was face-to-face. I appreciate the president asking some of us to come over and talk to him. And we got away from the politics of it. And I think we need to do more of that if we're going to solve this problem. It's going to take both sides to participate and literally put the interests of the country ahead of our respective political interests.
You know, it was interesting. Leadership wasn't there at all. Elected leadership, and I'm not to say that you guys aren't. You guys have your own entities, but the elected top leadership wasn't there. Is it easier to speak freely when the elected leadership isn't there? Is there a case where you guys can talk more if sort of the politics is out of the room?
Well, obviously, we respect the wisdom and the advice and the counsel of leadership. This was an opportunity for each of us to really pour our heart out in terms of how we believe we need to go forward for the sake of the future of the country, particularly in dealing with this debt and deficit and spending problem that we have. The president listened, and so we took a lot of the politicizing out of this whole process. And from that standpoint, I thought it was a constructive evening.
What's the next step?
In the end here, though,
go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, but in the end here, it's not just the words, it's the actions. We cannot keep careening from crisis to crisis, right. Soap opera to soap opera, short-term fixes. We need to put a long-term plan together, and that's the center of what the discussion was last night, and I thought it was very constructive.
So, and I talked to a few senators, a few folks that were in that room. And everybody seemed to agree that they didn't know the answer to this question, which is, what's the next step here? Is it more meetings with the president down at the White House? Is it smaller groups? Is it little bipartisan coalitions developing in the Senate? What's the next step that's concrete to advance this conversation?
Well, this could be a door opener for the actions that need to take place to turn the rhetoric into reality. And that is going to require people from the White House representing the president, working with staff, members talking with members, the president getting engaged directly in this process. It won't happen without the president's engagement. His reaching out, I hope, is a hopeful sign that he is doing such. The other part of this is that we have to understand we have a short window to do this. This is 2013. Next year is going to be another election year. So if there's ever a time to address what I think is the fundamental question facing this country, the time is now. And if we can keep that sense of urgency, whether it's small group, big group, leaders to leaders, or dinners last night with the president, let's get it done.
So, do you mind taking me in the room? I mean, how much of the time, did everybody get their time to talk? Was it truly a conversation? Was it a series of 13 speeches?
You know, the president opened up and then said, let me just lay out where I'm coming from and what I think we need to do to address this problem. Let's have an open discussion on that. And then he went around the room. He basically sat back and said, I want to hear from you. And each of us had the opportunity to look eyeball to eyeball and seriously put forward what our thinking was in terms of this and seeing where we could find some consensus. And he listened. And then we had a nice dialogue back and forth. So I think everyone felt that this was a unique setting. And it was about a 2.5-hour process here. So we really got it dug down into some serious stuff.
I heard it would have gone on longer, but there was a movement that nobody wanted to make anybody feel as if these went on too long. Is that fair to say?
Well, it had been a long day for all of us, and we still had action going on the Senate floor. So
yes, you did.
The day was going to get even longer. So, but I think the president gave us a very significant amount of his time.
All right, Senator Dan Coats, Republican from Indiana, taking us inside the room a little bit last night. Thanks for coming on and sharing it with us.
Sure enough. Thank you.
All right, up next.